I figured by this point in the conference, you all have heard just about enough traditional introductions. Is that correct? Yeah, you'd like something a little bit more avant-garde, something a little different? So I figured we would, for this introduction, play a little game with our next speaker, Bill Winterberg, who is, by the way, I mean, you probably should know this, the most important voice in the RIA space as it relates to technology. It's kind of a big deal, really. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this introduction. Bill, would you mind joining me up here? We're gonna play a game called Two Truths and a Lie. Anyone ever played this game? Where I've asked Bill to share with us 3 pieces of information. 2 of them are going to be true about him, and 1 of them is going to be false. It's our job then as a collective to figure out which one is false. You up for it? I mean, your job's easy. Is Bill up for it is the question. All right, Bill, I'll be the scribe over here, but we're ready when you are.
Okay. So, yes, Tim contacted me and said, let's do something fun. So I had to come up with these truths and lies.
You're a fun guy.
Yes. I like mushrooms as well. Okay, so we're going to go with statement number 1, correct? Statement number 1 is, I marched in the Baltimore Ravens football team marching band. Okay. Baltimore Ravens, and Tim loves that because of his legacy in Baltimore, right? All right.
Okay.
Number 2, I have visited all 48 of the contiguous United States of America. And number 3, I have actually made money playing pinball games. So 2 of these statements are true. 1 of these statements is false. So Tim is our MC for the afternoon. How does it go now?
Well, I'm about to tell you, Bill. Thanks for asking. It's very interesting. We're going to vote. Cast your vote in your mind, and then cast your vote with your hand. Ready? Number 1, who thinks it is false? Who thinks it's a lie that Bill Winterberg played in the Baltimore Ravens marching band?
Oh yes, a count. It may come down to a tiebreaker.
We've got 8 falsehoods there. Number 2, who thinks it's false that Bill Winterberg has visited all 48 contiguous U.S. states? Okay, and then who thinks it is false that Bill Winterberg has made money as a professional pinball player?
You guys give me a lot of credibility on the pinball one.
I gotta tell you, I am super impressed. Go on, now, would you mind walking us through each of these?
Okay, so we have to eliminate one of these. So the whole 4 of you with the made money playing pinball, that is a truth. I have actually made money, not life-changing money, but money nonetheless. It's amazing that I can play this game and enter tournaments and make like beer money, I guess, or drink money, right?
There are tournaments for pinball.
Yes, and pinball is back, baby. It's not getting better, it's back. I was a huge pinball fan in the mid-90s and late 80s, going down to the arcades, putting in those quarters. And this, you might have talked about it with the elements of money and finance. I got $1 when I'm 8 years old or 9 years old. And I learned really quickly, I could put $1 into pole position or Pac-Man, and it would disappear in about 3 minutes. And I'd be out $1, right? But I figured out if I put $1, which was 4 games on pinball, and I got good enough at pinball, I could play that pinball machine for 30, 40, 50 minutes. So huge order of magnitude of entertainment.
It was a present value entertainment.
Fulfillment? Yes, I was calculating it in real time, the present value of my $1, what it was worth.
Really? All right.
Okay, so now it comes down to the drum roll, right?
Can we get a drum roll, please?
Right.
Come on, people, drum roll.
So the other one that is true is, yes, I was in the Baltimore Ravens marching band. So it is a falsehood that I visited all 48. I added it up. I visited 47. It's the North Dakota. It's everybody's state that they've never been to. North Dakota is the one that I've not yet been to, and probably will brush on my next summer road trip. If you've been following Twitter or YouTube, I post these summer road trips, and I've been to a bunch of states driving through them, but have not yet visited North Dakota, but I hope to rectify that in 2020.
There we go.
So there you go.
Now, do you guys think that most speakers would be willing to play this game to kick things off? I don't think so. Let's give Bill Woodward a hand, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So with that lighthearted introduction, I hope that sets a great stage for some interactivity that we can have today. One of those pieces of interactivity is I added the little fine print that this was effective ways to communicate through technology, but I updated it to be the augmented advisor, because I thought about what's going to bring people into the room, bring you into the room, and the effective ways to communicate through technology that was quite literally correct and a very accurate title, but I think the augmented advisor can be a little more aspirational, where I hope to introduce you to technology, tools, and resources that allow you to augment and complement the things that you do. Because so much I read in today's media around financial services and the financial advice and wealth management industry is about technology that is disintermediating you and the things that you do. And I'm not excited about that type of technology. I have my own certified financial planner professional that I interact and engage with. Although he lives out in Portland, Oregon, I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So it is through this technology, much of which, or some things that you'll see in this presentation, that we use on a periodic and routine basis to maintain that relationship and have that connection even though we're 2,500 miles apart. So those are the types of technology that I hope you will take away. And up here in the front, I do have a couple of these paper-based handouts, if you did not already receive them. This is a 2-page handout that, if you are in the app, I do believe is accessible inside the app. If you prefer to scribble notes on paper, there's some extra copies up here. If you want the electronic PDF and you can't get that in the app or you're not logged in, just send me an email. My contact info will be on the final slide. I'd be happy to email that PDF to you. It has 99% of the pieces of software and pieces of technology that I talk about. So you don't need to worry about scrambling and writing that down really quickly here in our session. Much of that is listed in that 2-page PDF for your convenience. So without further ado, we are going to open up to questions. We're doing an audio recording, so I will do my best to repeat the questions. And I go until 2:45, which I guess is an hour. So I'll keep it lively, but we'll stop briefly for some of these questions so that we end right on time at 2:45. So augmented, what do you think about augmented? I preceded this with talking about the trends of the narrative in financial services media about disrupting and disintermediating advisors. I want to think about ways where we can augment the work that you do. So what are some examples of augmented technology that may not be in financial services, but are really starting to make their way into everyday practical uses? Well, some of these technologies like the Microsoft HoloLens, it's not quite so mainstream. It's a very large apparatus that you wear on your head, but it does augment reality by projecting these tiles that you can quite literally swipe your hands and point your fingers at in space. And the cameras and motion detectors in the unit translate all that hand movement into tile touching and virtual or augmented reality feedback information. I don't necessarily see this as a practical way to use augmented technology. So another good example of augmented technology that is a little bit more pervasive is the Pokemon Go app. Stay with me on this one. But it was a big craze about 2 or 3 years ago where people of all kinds were going into parks and coffee shops and these locations that were designated as gyms or locations to capture the Pokemon characters. And these are real-life destinations, but when you visit them in real life, you don't see anything. But when you open your phone and open the Pokemon app, you see this augmented world. You see the characters, you can interact and capture them and fire your little Pokemon balls at them. And I'm butchering this technology because I don't play the Pokemon Go app. But this was much more prolific in getting millions and millions of people using this type of technology. But it was for gaming purposes. Does it really have any business purposes? I don't really know. But again, another type of an example where that augmented reality is becoming more pervasive and part of the fabric of the technology that we use today. But one of the really cool applications of augmented reality is this app that if you have an iPhone and have updated to the latest iOS, you actually have this augmented tape measure app in your phone. So you might not realize it, but it's one of those that gets installed by default. And you literally wave your phone around on the floor, tapping on different corners in your room, and it puts together the total square footage of that room. No more getting the tape measure out, slapping back in your hand, giving you a little cut, right? You're now using your phone as this magic wand to perform this measurement, which is, in my mind, very practical and kind of mind-blowing. Like, I can't believe that I can use my phone to figure out how far it is from my toe to the back of the room, but you can now do that. That's pretty amazing technology. We're also seeing it in automobile applications. And so Cadillac is one of those manufacturers who has released this augmented reality technology inside of its flagship cars, where they're now projecting infrared and heat camera images. So even in really dark situations, the infrared or the heat or the infrared cameras are now able to see pedestrians and see animals in environments where you normally may not see them with your headlights. So again, this is not introducing a self-driving car where you don't drive at all. You're still in control, you're still driving actively, but your experience as a driver is augmented because you now have this superhuman vision. Now with that ability to see in the dark, quite literally, you have the odds to be a better driver. I think that is a very exciting and very interesting way that this technology is being deployed, and how I want you to think about how you can apply some of this technology in your business to, again, augment what you do. Another example that I have is a collision avoidance technology that is being deployed in BMW vehicles. So I have a short video demonstrating what that collision avoidance can do, which when you think about, if you're driving a car with this collision avoidance and you literally cannot intentionally crash it, what does that do to the insurance industry and the underwriting for that? So it's quite interesting to see what these cars can do. So he drives up and he has his foot firmly planted on the accelerator, but the car will not go through the cardboard boxes. So he flips it into reverse. The car goes into reverse at full speed, but before crashing through the cardboard boxes, the car stops on its own. So the driver has his or her foot firmly planted on the accelerator, but the car won't do what the car is programmed, I suppose, not to do. So it's very interesting to think about, well, are there things in wealth management and things in financial planning or things in tax management that maybe you want to put some guardrails in place? And so can those guardrails act like this collision avoidance? Is there collision avoidance for wealth management? Very interesting to think about whether or not that type of concept can be applied in your business. That's what gets me excited about augmented technology. So that's the technology that really leverages and amplifies what you do so that you can be a better advisor. So when I talk about the technology to be used as the augmented advisor, I break it up into 4 different categories. I break it up into technology that you can use for prospecting. How do you reach out to strangers and get them interested in your services and in your business? And how do you augment the way that you attract households and maybe institutions to your business during that prospecting phase? So we'll talk about some technology that you can use in that phase. Then I segue into the client onboarding process. And again, that type of technology that can really augment the experience that your new client has when they start to engage your service, when they start to fill out their initial materials, sign on the dotted line, or the virtual dotted line, if you will, and really go through that first onboarding experience. And then with those clients that you have onboarded and with those clients that are your legacy clients and you've been serving for years and years, what about the collaboration process? All the ongoing touch points, the interactivity, the collaboration that you have going on back and forth, what are some things that you can do to emphasize what you already do to maybe allow you to work a little bit more efficiently, but also meet the clients, more demanding clients' expectations, given that technology like this is becoming so much more pervasive in our daily lives. And then I have a nice little section on what I see on the horizon, and there are some practical tools that you can experiment with that I'll talk about that maybe you can't use today, you can't buy today, but within a year or two, I think you would see some solutions either added as integrations into the existing solutions that you use today, or maybe a brand new solution you can purchase. But you can think about laying the framework today of, if this becomes available in the next year or two, how would I be able to purchase it, implement it, and use it in my business, and introduce it to clients and prospects? So with prospecting, the first and foremost thing that always comes up in these discussions is thinking about how you're augmenting the discovery process that prospects go through to figure out who you are and what your business is. And so I don't know who this guy is, but this guy looks up a lot of businesses and service providers online. And this guy is doing Google searches, they're hitting social media profiles, but it's part of that due diligence process that more and more emerging households and emerging investors are performing each and every day. So think about, how are you augmenting that experience for prospects that you have yet to meet? Are you making the necessary investments in your website and your online footprint? And I know throughout the course of this event, you've heard some other speakers talk about ways to increase your social footprint, ways to increase and enhance your website. And so I won't spend a lot of time talking about that, but it's important that I emphasize that more and more people really are going to these destinations, your website and your other social profiles, to really figure out who you are, who you serve, how do you work, do you work with other people like that prospect who is looking you up? And so you can think of some examples that I like to illustrate. One of these is Circe Financial, and they gave me permission to put in their website, which I love on their first page, how they emphasize their people. That's the first thing that I see. If I want to drill down into more information about their people, I can go see a very nice About page. And if I want to see more about Michael, the founder of the firm, they've got a very nice bio, very nice photos. But the touch that I really like is Michael's photos with his grandkids and showing about his community involvement, helping them in a fundraising exercise. It's more than just Michael has a CFP certification and he's been in the industry for 20 years and he has these other designations and so on and so on. Those are really good table stakes, and you'll find that many of your competitors in your local area as well as nationwide have many of those similar attributes. But the websites that stand out for me really talk about some more of those personal details. And so we talked about the Baltimore Ravens, we talked about road trips, we talked about pinball for myself. I certainly do a good job posting this on sites like Twitter that I'll get into. But if I were actively seeking out new prospects and actively trying to grow my business, I definitely would share that information about myself, but I'd also open up that opportunity to everyone in my staff. Because everyone plays a part and plays an important role in growing the business. So how do you impress upon prospects that are learning about your firm with that type of unique information? Who knows, you might attract other professional pinball players, or you might attract full-time musicians who love the marching band and the drum corps environments. Those are those little touches and little things that really do set you apart, that augments and leverages who you are and how you interact and engage with prospects. So there's not a lot here in search engine optimization and Google keywords and SEO juice. Those are for other sessions and other speakers. I want you to focus on those unique attributes about yourself and your staff and make it just easier to interact with and discover and engage when those prospects do hit your site and look for that information. So also this extends to other social profiles. So beyond your website, not everybody and not every firm is deciding to pursue social media and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn with diving in with both feet. But you do what feels right for your firm, and also think about the clients that you already have and how prolific and how much time they spend on social sites. And if you were to attract more prospects like those clients, where is it in your best interest to spend that time? Is it on sites like Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or other sites that may be more akin to the niche that your clients are operating in? Think about ways to publish and disseminate and broadcast some of that personal information about pinball and about the Baltimore Ravens and about road trips. You can use Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And again, you can dive into the details in a lot of other sessions, but I want your takeaway to say, we augment our prospects' discovery process by leveraging these sites that are at our disposal, and you use them judiciously with specific goals in mind, that we know our ideal clients spend time on these types of services, and therefore we're going to leverage those instead of try to be in all places at all times, which can seem to be like a Sisyphean effort to try to be everywhere and online 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you have permission from me not to try and pursue every site with all your content. Be more specific about it and judicious about that use, and try to be intentional about optimizing where you're sharing that information. Now, one of the nice trends that I'm also noticing on websites is the use of a very straightforward explainer video. And so I captured this about 2 years ago from Orion Advisor Tech, that they had a very short, less than 90-second explainer video about what are some of the challenges advisors face today, and what are some of the disadvantages of losing out to not having efficient processes, and that's why Orion exists today. And it talks about, we are not only providers of technology, but we've had our employees and our stakeholders operate as advisors for 20 years. So not only are we building technology for advisors, but we also have that expertise as being in the role of an advisor and using that in their technology. And they put together a nice, clever explainer video. Theirs was animated graphics that they commissioned, put to nice music, and you work on a great script to say, what are some of the challenges our clients face? What are some of the opportunities that can be capitalized if our clients take advantage of those opportunities? And that describes who we are, because we're always looking for those specific opportunities for our specific niche of clients and really focusing on that. If you can summarize that in 60 seconds or 90 seconds, you can think about doing an explainer video, maybe commissioning somebody to do the animated video for you. But a little bit later on, you'll hear that I'm a little bit more of a fan of more personal and relatable videos, but I don't want to get the cart too far ahead of the horse. But just thinking about, it might be too late in 2019, but in 2020, is this something you want to take on in the first 3 months or 4 months to say, I'm committed to putting an explainer video out there. We'll put it right on our homepage or right at the top of our About page, and we'll also circulate it on maybe our Facebook page and our YouTube page. But we just really need to be very clear about who we are, what we do, who we serve, and how we work, and also throw in a nice call to action at the end, where it ends with, call us today, send us an email, or here's our number you can text. Whatever call to action you want that prospect to pursue, you can put that at the end of your explainer video. So again, pretty blue ocean here, not a lot of competition, because I do try to hit a lot of advisor sites as I update my materials, and I don't see a lot of advisors working on these types of materials. So I encourage you, there's still some great opportunities to stand out and be unique here. It does take some effort, it does take some time to put together, but I trust that the rewards and the return on investment will be worth it. So the first wave of augmenting the way you prospect really covers those unique website attributes. Again, more personal information, more information that's more relatable to the work or the passions that your targeted prospects have. Using social media sites in a targeted fashion, where you know your prospects are spending their time, where you may be able to make a connection there, and also being much more specific about your client solutions. So we've inevitably seen many sites that say we work with individuals and small business owners on a variety of wealth management needs. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything. If you specialize in physicians who work in the Emory University environment outside Greater Atlanta, well, now you've really hit on that hot button point for my household, given that my spouse is a physician that works with Emory University. So if you know that you have some of the attributes that span more than just a couple of client households, you have dozens of households that you serve, you now can be very specific about identifying those client solutions. So when those prospects find that information, they're like, wow, I found the firm that really is an expert in things that are concerning to myself and to my household. Now, this is the only interactive portion in terms of a show of hands. How many of you use a newsletter service to send out client newsletter information? It's fantastic. I've got about 85–90% of the room. Well, that is great to be able to send out client newsletter information, but I would also say you can augment the same service that you use to use it for your prospects, because newsletters just aren't only for clients. I would urge you to look into the ways to use services like Aweber, which is the service that I use for my newsletter, but also Constant Contact, MailChimp, Infusionsoft, and so many more. There are ways where you can create segments inside your list of subscribers. So you can create a segment of current clients, but you can also create a new segment of prospects. So as you meet new people and get permission to be able to add those individuals to a prospect segment, this allows you to send a little bit more tailored information via your same email newsletter service that is more geared towards your prospects. So you're not necessarily giving the client-specific information. Maybe you have events for clients. That's why you would use your client email segment. But if you want to create some networking opportunities or prospecting-specific events, creating the segments in these pieces of technology is the best way and the easiest way to do that targeted delivery. I've got my first questions. What is your question, sir? So the question is, what does this do for me that the email groups doesn't do? So my familiarity with your email groups is probably using Microsoft Outlook to create a group of recipients. And these services are more for, and we'll see this in a minute in my slides, these are more for prospects hit your website and they're not ready to buy your services, they're not ready to sign up, but they want some more information from you. So it allows them to volunteer and sign up on their own. So you don't have to ever do anything with your groups. You don't have to add an email address manually to your Microsoft Outlook listing. This is kind of a self-service tool that the prospect goes on, fills in their information, and they voluntarily subscribe. And these services usually have a double opt-in permission request process, and that leads to almost guaranteed delivery of your email. Because like it or not, I think most of us still live in our email inboxes today. It's just the way that we deal with correspondence. But more and more of us are really sensitive to being added surreptitiously to newsletters that we never signed up for, and we hate that. We're going to flag it as spam, and then if your domain gets flagged too much as spam, then you get into trouble with your mail delivery provider. So these services exist to circumvent some of those challenges of managing your own groups inside your email program. So that was a long-winded way, but I hope that that addressed your question and is a good segue into the next slide. I hope it's a good segue into the next slide. Because yes, if I have this email newsletter and I use it for clients, I have no problem getting ideas of what I want to communicate to my clients, but what do I tell prospects? What's that type of content that I want to send out there? Well, fortunately, there are ways you can license some of the content. If you're operating in a more institutional broker-dealer environment, or you need to get compliance approval for any correspondence you send out to prospects, licensing some content from the service providers. I know that eMoney offers some marketing library information. I think we're seeing the Advicent marketing library of information here in the video. SnappyKraken is another service provider that offers compliance-approved marketing information. So you can use that licensed content to communicate to prospects and think about, okay, the prospects will get a different type of correspondence versus our clients, because we have much more specific information and awareness of what our client needs are. But if you're sending out client information to prospects, it may not meet the mark just because they're not clients yet. They're still in the discovery phase with your firm. And so sending them information as if they were clients might miss the mark, and they might not want to receive any more information in the future. But nevertheless, you can use that licensed content to inspire you to create your own original content. So in many cases, it's hard to sit down at a computer and figure out what it is I'm going to write at that point in time. But using some of the licensed content to inspire you and allow you to write in your own voice or provide your key takeaway, that's a really good way to shorten the time it takes to create this content that might be better engaging to your prospects. Another engaging service that I'm starting to see, and I had experimented with it, although I fell a little off the bandwagon here, is using the Alexa flash briefings. So again, if you are publishing an Alexa flash briefing, I can, as a prospect, I'm interested in your business, I can subscribe to your flash briefing via my Alexa device. And to activate that, I could be making my coffee in the morning, and the flash briefing is a series of audio updates from the different subscriptions that I customize. So if you ask my Alexa device, and I hope the audio is loud enough here, you say, Alexa, what is today's news? This is what you hear.
Here's your flash briefing from fppad.com.
Welcome to a new FPPAD FinTech briefing. Here are the top FinTech stories you need to know today. It was a tough week for Robinhood, the zero-commission stock and cryptocurrency trading app, as the company first suffered a significant outage related.
So that's a short audio recording that I create out of my little microphone that I've got plugged into a speaker. I do go through the lengths of adding some music to it so it sounds nice and professional. It takes me about 20 minutes or 15 minutes to do that, or when I did it. It's been a few months since I've done those updates, but you think about ways that if you're already sending out information to clients and you're creating custom content for your prospects via email, well, what if you just read it? And read it into a microphone, get a little nice, soft, energetic piece of music to go underneath it. You're now using the same piece of content, but putting your voice on it, and also allow your other, or not allow, but encourage your other advisors and other associates in your firm to provide audio updates. This is a great way to stand out today in the audio delivery. And now in the, at least the Amazon ecosystem, anyone with the Amazon account, Amazon creates a easy flash briefing publication blueprint. It used to be that a year ago you needed to use a third-party service where you would upload the audio, and that's all been simplified by Amazon. You can just Google the instructions on how to set up a flash briefing, follow these steps, and it's probably 1 through 6 steps, where you can learn how to record using a microphone plugged into your computer, maybe drag and drop a music track, or have somebody train you how to do it, or get an employee in your business to kind of take your audio, put some music underneath it, and create that finished package. And once you start getting into a routine, maybe think about doing this once a week. So maybe it's a Monday morning update, or maybe it's a Friday morning update, so that it's not so overwhelming. There's no rule on how frequently you need to update these briefings. Just think about your prospect in his or her kitchen. What do you want them to hear, and what type of takeaway or information do you want them to learn from you? So again, you may be already sending out that information via email and posting to Twitter and to LinkedIn. Now you can use that same material, go through a 2-minute recording or a 90-second recording, and also think about that call to action at the end. If you have any questions or have any comments, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to email you? Do you want them to reply to you on Twitter? Do you want them to tag you on LinkedIn? I don't know. All of those are acceptable ways to have a call to action. But just think about those ways of using this type of audio technology to set yourself apart from much of the competition. So again, also, I'm a shop of one, and so I admit, I've fallen off the bandwagon because I went on my road trip and I've been doing more of this pinball stuff. So I've got to get back on and get into a better routine of these audio briefings. So it's important that, see, even I can't commit to it and get all the content out there. It's okay to experiment with this, but see if this is really something that you like. And it's also pretty easy because it just takes a microphone plugged into your laptop. It doesn't take cameras, it doesn't take lights, it doesn't take any of all that practice that we'll get into. I think the barrier to entry is fairly low here, and you can get into a great routine and include all the employees and stakeholders in your business, so everybody has an opportunity to broadcast these types of flash briefings. Yes, your question.
I would assume that's specific to that Amazon device then, what people listen to?
So the question is it specific to the Amazon Alexa devices? And so no, when you do a recording, you can disseminate that wherever you want. It's just what's your workflow, what's your process. So you would have to create an account with Amazon and then publish your briefing there. But for the Google Home devices, you would create an account with Google and learn how to do the updates there for their news updates. The steps are a little bit different. And so it's one of those, build it into your workflow, build it into your process. I would say that working with the Amazon Alexa devices is your primary, because that's, when you look at the demographics of the households that own the Echo devices, they're probably highly correlated with the types of households that you would like to work with in your business. Then to a lesser extent are the Google devices, and then everything else is very small market share. So the nice thing is the Amazon one is very easy now and straightforward on setting up. The Google one I'm less familiar with, and I don't publish there because I just don't think that there is a large overlap to the type of audience that I have. Any more questions about this audio update before I move on? No questions? We'll move on. So this gives you an example of your prospects are seeking out things that they want to consume and they want to engage with. And this is really emphasized with the trend of more online self-service options that financial services firms are pushing out to prospects. So we're seeing some examples of self-service with the automated investment services like what the Ritholtz Wealth Management firm is doing with their Liftoff platform, as well as Cambria Investment Management and Meb Faber. They both have white-labeled the Betterment for Advisors platform and are offering low-cost automated investment management to consumers, investors, who log in to the Liftoff site or discover the Liftoff site, and it's completely a self-service option that the prospect has if they are looking to invest smaller sums of money or have straightforward investment objectives. It's a way for more and more prospects to get a flavor for what type of models or what type of investment management you pursue in your household, but this is watered down is probably not the right word for it, but it's just more narrow and more focused for emerging investors. So this is something to consider, and it's not right for everyone, but it's something to consider that would we want to, as a firm, offer a self-service option for some of our investment models like these firms are doing. And so like it or not, this is happening in the marketplace, and so the choice falls on you of, is it something, it's not a bandwagon, but is it something that we would want to emulate as well? Or how would we offer similar self-service options for prospects who want a taste and a flavor of what our firm has to offer without going through the full commitment of a formal engagement with our firm? So in addition to the online automated investment services, there now are more options for investors and households to get some self-service planning. So what we see here is the plugin from Advisor, which is now part of the Orion Advisor Tech firm, but also eMoney Advisor is rolling out that self-service introductory planning modules. MoneyGuide Pro is rolling out those blocks modules that some may be able to be used directly by prospects without any interaction by you. It just allows prospects to get their feet wet, to go get some straightforward answers to some straightforward questions. But typically at the end of these self-service and self-guided exercises, there's that call to action that these answers are pretty generic in nature, but that's because we didn't collect a lot of information. If you still think that you would benefit from additional details or that you'd like to dive deeper into some of the questions or scenarios that you ran through these self-service tools, that's your opportunity to issue that call to action to say, this is what we do each and every day, again, to people who are working at Emory University inside Atlanta. Those are the types of calls to action that you can put at the end of these self-service modules. So again, your prospects are able to try a lot more before they buy and be able to try things that they may not have been able to access just a few years ago when they were trying to perform due diligence and figure out what firm they want to do business with. In addition to the online planning modules, the risk modeling or the risk number illustrations have been a very popular way to give investors and prospects a way to try, hey, let me do this self-assessment. Does this seem right, or does it raise additional questions that I might have where my risk really doesn't match what I currently have with respect to investments? And then usually that call to action is, again, if this doesn't seem right or this seems out of line with what you expected, this is what we do each and every day with the households that we serve. And so we'd love to have the opportunity to speak in more detail and in more depth after going through these risk exercises. So again, it's not all of your services publicized for any household to engage in, but it's just that first couple of steps. It's that first phase where they're able to use these tools and get a sense of what you have to offer, but they understand that there's more to your formal engagement, and anything that you can do to put in descriptions or little frequently asked questions or a help guide that is more specific to the things that you do, those are smart things to do to customize some of these self-service tools. So that wraps up all the prospecting tools that you can use to augment what you're doing today. So thinking about ways to capture contact information from clients, or from prospects, so the AWeber, Constant Contact, they almost always give you a little widget or a little box that you can embed, sometimes even on social media posts, but at the very least on your website, so that your prospect can sign up for more information without making the full commitment of engaging in a meeting in a formal onboarding process with you. They want to learn more, so give them the opportunity to drop that email address in. And understand that in order to get that email contact information, you should be willing to give up some content and give up some valuable information. So maybe you just give it right there on the website, or the call to action is if you sign up with your email address, we'll give you a 5-email series, which is all automated inside those newsletter technologies. It just automatically sends out 5 emails, 1 email every 2 days, that guides them through, oh, this is what we've learned about Emory University, there are these unique attributes, stay tuned to the next email where we dive into this separate detail. It's just interesting to think about using that technology so that you're not having to manually send any of those emails. They're all done in an automated fashion through the tools that I talked about. So publishing content that matters and is really targeted to your prospect profile is a great example to follow. And the self-service engagements, again, we're seeing that not just with the automated investment, but now we're seeing it with planning as well as the risk assessment tools. There's more ways than ever before that prospects can go through these self-service experiences and get a flavor for what it's like to go through your full wealth management suite of services. So hopefully, as prospects go through all of this, they may be ready to become a client. But before I segue into the client onboarding process, any questions about what I talked about through prospecting? Yes, sir. Yeah, so to summarize the question, like the Money Guide Pro blocks are options that can be introduced to prospects, and is there a way to have that call to action to use a block from an email newsletter? And I agree. I think it'd be great to put a little email blast out there to say that we've added a new feature to our website, so you can create a new page, like a landing page on your website that has the the Get Started button for the blocks. And so that is what you send out in your email to say, we want to introduce this new service to you. Whenever you have a free moment, it takes about 10 minutes so that you're helping set expectations. You put that in the email, and then you put that hyperlink to say, you can get started now, and it takes 10 minutes. And that's what takes the prospect to that landing page. So it doesn't take them to your home page or to your About page, but that specific new page that you set up that has the blocks widget added there. So you probably need some assistance with the webmasters or whoever is in charge with your site to figure out how to do that. But the interesting takeaway that I would put on that is not necessarily trying to make one landing page with 8 different blocks on it. Think about making 8 pages, and each page just has one block. Because now you can target your prospects based on the block that you think would be best suited for them, right? So I might be interested in the block for college funding. So now you can think about only sending out messages to households that have expressed interest in college funding. So the only landing page that I get on your website is welcome to the college funding block. So you made it easy for me because I don't have to navigate through 8 different blocks all on the same web page. So the answer is yes. You can be pretty strategic about sending out those email newsletters to say we added a new feature to our site. It's this college planning block. Click here to get started, and that link goes right to that landing page on your website. But another recipient might get the retirement planning email, and that link says get started with retirement planning in 10 minutes. They land right on the retirement planning page. So that's a great way to minimize friction, because the worst thing is for me going on one page and seeing 8 blocks there, and it's like, well, which one do I get started with? Maybe 3 or 4 are good for me. So being much more specific about doing one thing, because I have enough time to do one thing, but we probably don't have time to do 2 or 3 or 4 of those exercises. So a great way to leverage both pieces of technology that way. I'm going to move on into onboarding and hopefully have some time at the end to take some additional questions. So with onboarding, it never ceases to amaze me. You think about your calendar and the meetings that you have with your current clients and your staff meetings. Well, you know that your clients that you deal with today, they are busy physicians, they are busy contractors, they're engaged with after-school sports and weekend tournaments. Well, you start going back and forth to say, when would you like to have your first meeting? We would love to have you in our office. And that email goes back and forth, and you know inevitably turns into email battleship. All this going back and forth, I can't do Tuesday, can you do Friday? No, I can't. It's just not a good use of anybody's time, and it's super frustrating. And if that's the first experience I have for onboarding for your firm, I'm starting to get cold feet, I guess, because boy, just solidifying a meeting time wasn't that great. I hope that's not an indicator of what's to come as I start getting deeper and deeper in your onboarding process. And so the technology that you can use to augment that onboarding and that first meeting process are online schedulers and online calendars. So yet again, there are services like Calendly and Pick, Acuity Scheduling, and more. Again, they're all in the handout because I didn't blow up the text so you could read what these services are. But these are sites that not only can you email out a link to say, would love to meet you for our first meeting, click here to book a meeting with me. That takes the prospect to your landing page where all it has is a calendar, and they pick one or more dates as a proposal for the meeting. And these services allow you to say, the prospect must choose 2 times or 3 times, or 1 is acceptable. You can set those settings of how you would like prospects to be able to book meetings with you. And there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes to figure out, is the right advisor selected? Is there a conference room available at that time so that you can meet? So there's some specific settings that are nuanced with the different services. So you might have to try a couple of them and experiment with them with your staff on trying to book some sample meetings in order to determine which service is best for your firm. But at the end of the day, the services like this make it super easy to book those meetings. They can most likely automatically confirm that meeting, but also if the prospect needs to make a cancellation, they do the cancellation through these services. So it removes the appointment so that it frees it up for another prospect, and then books the new meeting so that you cannot get double booked in those times. It's a great, convenient way, again, to augment just that first meeting. And I bet that you would love to be able to use this with clients as well. It's not just the initial onboarding phase, but for all your clients on getting meetings booked just that much more efficiently. Another way to simplify the onboarding process is thinking about using more video conferencing. And so you're seeing myself meet with my executive producer, and we're just getting more and more ingrained in just meeting with videos. And so some of you are already doing this with clients, but think about getting more experience and getting more people in your organization comfortable with using these video services. And when I mean comfortable, it's not only just being yourself with the video camera on and just not being so stiff, but thinking about what's behind you, right? What I hate with video conferencing is with laptops, because they have the built-in webcams, and it's always on the desk below you, and the webcam is going right up this direction. For those who are listening to the audio, I'm pointing right up my nostrils. It's the worst. So if you can get a separate webcam and put it above your eye line, and then you can train yourself to look into the webcam rather than look at the screen, right? If you're looking into the webcam, you're making eye contact with the recipient. And so it's training. You can get a little Post-it note, cut a hole in it, and put "look here" on the Post-it note, and you put it right around the webcam, because that's where you need to look. We're all tempted to look at the screen because that's where the person's face is. But that's a little tidbit to say if you want to make direct eye contact. And that's what I mean by getting comfortable with video conferencing. So with the onboard experiences, if you're thinking about increasing your geographic footprint and working with more and more households that may not be just within 50 miles of your office or 25 miles, video conferencing is a very powerful way to increase the footprint of the households that you serve. So if you're not yet doing this, get those webcams, get it a little bit above your eye line, get a nice microphone so that your sound quality is really good. And most of these pieces of technology, it's a $40 USB headset, it's a $45 webcam or a $60 webcam. It's really inexpensive. But the most important thing is just going through the motions and working with other employees and having a practice session and thinking about what's behind you and making sure that the sight lines are all good. You can really discover that more and more, I think, emerging households, including myself, I love meeting this way. And being in Atlanta, the thought of even driving 15 miles to an advisor's office is like, no way. You know, during business hours, that's a deal breaker. I'm not driving. But if I can have a quick 20-minute chat with you via video, I would jump in and do that in a heartbeat. Yes, sir, in the back.
We struggle with lighting doing these. It's always difficult. You have a lot of time. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yes, the question is, we struggled with lighting. Yes, I went to a broadcast conference, and I found they look like these lightsabers. And they can go on either side of your monitor. But what I love is how thin they are. And so I'll give you the link to my YouTube video. If you go to the FPPAD YouTube channel and look for like webcam lighting, I think that search, that would be go to YouTube and say FPPAD webcam lighting. And that should get you that video of that lighting kit. And there's all sorts of stuff you can do with natural windows, but it's just being conscious of, do I look good? Do I look well lit? Is the background distracting, or does it look professional? Those are great things to think about when pursuing the video conferencing. I'm going to speed up just a little bit so I end on time. But for those, not everybody wants to meet with video conferences, right? You're going to have plenty of people who will come into your office. And so there's a whole session that we could give just on in-office technology. But think about, do you have, if you have a lot of check-ins at the front desk, there are some now great iPad apps to allow people to check in and notify advisors to check in. But you still have a front desk person in many cases to do the greeting, so maybe you don't want to replace it with an iPad. But also in the conference setting, are you using touch screens or using iPads? What does your technology footprint look like in the office? Are you putting your best foot forward? So there's lots of ways to think about how you can just subtly add some technology, not to make it overwhelming, but just use the right types of technology to, again, augment what you do in that onboarding process and that discovery process. So again, a lot to cover in there, but just imagine if I went into your office, what would I think going into your conference room? Would I think that it's fresh and modern and really well put together, or would I be horrified by the pile of yellow legal pads over there in the corner? Because all that stuff that's handwritten, I know it doesn't get scanned, I know it doesn't get indexed, and if you wrote something down about what to do, it's like, unless that gets manually entered into CRM, it's just staying on that yellow legal pad. I'm making that assumption in my mind based on what I see in the office. So that's my takeaway, is think about what people see in your office with respect to how you're leveraging technology for your onboarding process. Now, when I talked about those legal pads, many of you collect so much information and so much data during the onboarding process. There are tools that exist like PreciseFP and Laserfiche and so many more that, again, allow you to build like a custom page on your website to say, as you become a new client, go to this site and you can enter your address information, phone number information, information about dependents that you have, so on and so forth. So something like PreciseFP and Laserfiche, they do smart forms. So if I show that I choose single, it's not going to automatically give me information about, well, what's your spouse's name and what's your spouse's age, right? You don't need to clutter an intake form with all those defaults when they don't apply to me. So those are ways to use technology to make that data intake process more efficient. And then on the back end, these tools integrate with the CRMs that you use, the financial planning and portfolio management solutions that you use, so that you're not getting that mistaken fat finger entry or duplicate entry on the back end. These are using integrations to push that information seamlessly, or most of the part, mostly seamlessly, right, into the destination solutions. In addition to the information like addresses and phone numbers that you collect, you're inevitably collecting tax returns, wills, and all those legal documents. And so in many cases, more and more advisory firms are leveraging the document vaults. So again, inviting the client to go to the website, log in with their new login to the account, and then upload certain documents that you requested and use those in document vaults. And there's a number of solutions here that commercial solutions like the Microsoft OneDrive or Dropbox or Box are very prevalent among advisory firms, as well as ShareFile. There's some consumer ones that are here that may or may not be appropriate or may not pass compliance approval in your organization, but it just gives you an idea of how they work and how clients can use these vaults to exchange the PDFs and scans of documents that they have safely and securely. But you'll soon find that as you start collecting more and more tax returns and wills and trusts and all of these documents, it gets really hard to organize them and retrieve them at a later time. So that's when your firm may want to graduate into more formal document management solutions. So those solutions include NetDocuments, Cabinet, Laserfiche, and WorldDocs. And again, SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint also is where you're able to put the date of the document, the client's name, is it a tax form, if it is it a 1040, is it a 1099? You're able to put that metadata or that descriptive data about those documents so that 3 years from today, you can go into one of these programs and say, I need the Winterberg form 1040 from 2017, hit the enter key, and up it comes. So in your document vaults, like what we saw with Box and Dropbox, it's pretty hard to do that retrieval using the keywords that I just described. That's why the document management programs are in a little bit different classification, because you're putting that descriptive data about those documents so that you can retrieve it with a very good search query years in the future. In addition to those documents that you collect, you've got the compliance forms and the fee forms that your new clients need to sign, in addition to the custodian documents if you're going to perform asset management. And so e-signatures become so much more prevalent. In many cases, your custodian and your asset provider is kind of mandating what electronic signature service you want to use. But for your own form ADVs or for your own fee disclosures, you can certainly choose from the commercial solutions like DocuSign, eSign Live, Right Signature, and more, so that your clients don't need to use any paper. They don't need to go to FedEx stores or UPS stores to send anything with paper. They can use the safe and secure apps on their iPads or even their iPhones or mobile phones, to keep it platform independent, to apply the signatures, review documents. And in many cases, that's even more secure than a wet signature, because it's capturing the device that they use, the IP address, the date and time. So you're getting a lot more information with the signature, in addition to many times client authentication with some challenge questions. And I know that cuts both ways. On some clients don't get the challenge questions correct. And so there's still some evolution happening today with these signature programs. But this is really where that onboarding process gets augmented, where you're pushing less and less paper and you're doing it in a more safe and secure fashion. Also, in addition to the document management and the document vaults, so many more advisors are using the interactive and engaging client portals. So what you see here is the eMoney Advisor portal that clients can go in, and many times eMoney is using account aggregation so that the clients can see assets, or they can volunteer to connect their third-party asset accounts so that they can use one single dashboard to see all their information. There is a document vault embedded into something like this. And so in many cases, I presented all these individual solutions, but your providers like an eMoney or a MoneyGuide Pro or Orion, they have all this built into one solution, so you can do multiple things all with one service provider to cover all the things addressed in your onboarding process. Also, many of your service providers are deploying mobile apps. So I talked about using iPhones and iPads for the signature process. You can think about ways to publish a mobile app for your firm. Again, providers like Orion and Envestnet, Wealth Access, and Black Diamond, they offer the ability for you to publish your branded app, but it uses their technology so that you're not having to do a lot of overhead and not spend a lot of employee time managing these apps. But you're still delivering a very nice and low friction experience for your clients as they onboard with your firm. And again, some of these include account aggregation prompts, or you think about the client email newsletters that we were talking about before. These types of apps are great places to add and distribute that information. And it gives your client the reason to go back into the app, maybe after a little while. You don't necessarily want to train them to get into the app every day to look at their asset accounts, right? But if you're putting in your education information or pertinent tax deadlines, that gives your client the reason to revisit the app and re-engage in the education and information that you're providing to clients on a routine basis. And so that covers augmented onboarding, using the online schedulers to avoid email battleship, practicing your video calling and screen sharing skill set, and making sure that all employees are much more proficient in using these pieces of technology. How do you gather data during the onboarding process? Are you using forms that are intelligent, that only ask questions when they're relevant to your new onboarding household? Using document vaults and electronic signature appropriately, and then thinking about those feature-rich portals as well as mobile apps to really give a very nice frictionless or low-friction experience for those new households as they onboard in your business. So I've wasted a lot of time talking at length about all this. So I have the augmented collaboration. I think it's still pretty short, but still, even with the clients that you've gone through that initial onboarding process and you're in that sustainability phase and periodic update phases, here's some things that you can use to really augment what you do. A trend that I'm seeing is with messaging, not necessarily text messaging, but using services like Slack. I know many firms are using Slack internally for internal communications, so instead of setting tasks or using emails, they're using channels in Slack to perform trade discussions, or like, when are these trades going to go out? Hey, I just added something. So it cuts down on the email traffic, but it sort of moves it to a different location. But think about ways to open up a channel to clients. What if clients had a Slack app on their mobile device? Would that be something that you would entertain to allow clients to safely and securely message you rather than using email, which is more inherently not secure? Would that be something that you would open up to clients? And inevitably comes up, is this compliance approved? Is it okay to use? And if you purchase premium versions of Slack, all your messages are archived and retained for compliance purposes, so it does meet your FINRA and SEC requirements for that data. But your mileage may vary in terms of where you work and or the environment you operate in. So you'd want to make sure that you get the approval for services like this before you use it in your business. So maybe not going into Slack, but thinking about ways to add a live chat option to your website. We've talked about websites a lot. Is this something that you would pursue, that anybody going to your website, client or prospect, you have that little pop-up to say, hey, we're online. If you have a question, just type it here and we can answer it. Now, you certainly don't need to answer specific tax questions or specific investment questions. You can have a default response of, hey, this is pretty detailed. We're here if you want to give us a call, or if you'd like to schedule a meeting, here's our link to our meeting scheduler. You can triage that using these types of live chat interfaces. Again, the premium versions of the live chats that I talk about in that 2-page PDF, they all do the archiving and record keeping for those messages, so you don't need to worry about getting in trouble from your regulators for losing messages that go between prospects and clients. I'm going to defer to the question to the end just so I make sure I get through everything. I don't need the live chat, so I'll dismiss that message and go on to the next topic in our collaboration. A really interesting trend that I'm noticing is the use of co-editing software. And so Google Drive and Office 365 allow you and a client to be inside a document at the same time. So while you're creating your strategies or writing your documents, you don't need to be in the same room with a client. The client can be at his or her own computer typing in their sentences and typing in their information simultaneously. And then when you're done with that experience, you just exit out of that document and all of that is saved in that document. Very interesting to see how advisors are using that with clients, as well as like third-party CPAs or third-party estate planning attorneys, where you're in the same document editing at the same time while you're on the phone together. Very clever way to avoid the emails back and forth of the document that always comes back final version 2.1, right? That's what this avoids. Also, another thing that I'm seeing with ongoing clients is maybe they're not wanting, or maybe they're adverse to signing up for the client portal. They just don't know how. They need their hand held to go through that registration process to get into that portal the first time. So if you find yourself explaining the same process over and over to different clients, think about getting proficient with screencasting software. And so this is where you record your screen of your computer while you're talking into a microphone, and you create a video. So there's services like Camtasia, Adobe Captivate, Screencast-O-Matic, and more that allow you to narrate what is happening on your screen, and you can make a little 60-second video, and now you can publish it maybe inside your private vault, or maybe publicly on your webpage to say, this is our client vault. Let me show you how it works. This is how you sign in, and this is the example of what you see. And if you'd like to add your outside accounts, this is the page that you do it. So you or anyone in your office can use the screencasting to provide these little tutorials. It's a great way to use that video information to record it one time, but have it played hundreds or thousands of times across clients and prospects so they can learn how to do the things that are required to work with you long term. So that gets into video content, which is the last phase that I'm seeing a significant uptick in advisor use. So screencasts are great because you don't have to be on camera. It's recording your screen and you're narrating what's going on the screen. But video content does take that to the next level. And so I have always admired an advisor. He's no longer practicing now, but Andy Millard out in Tryon, North Carolina. You may have seen Andy's videos. And it's really great for Andy because he had that acting experience and he was super comfortable in front of the camera. But what was really great about Andy was the series of videos that he would put out there. And when you watched it, either on his website or on YouTube, you see how comfortable Andy is. He's just a down-home, good guy and just speaks very clearly and doesn't use jargon. And that video content is just a great way to express who Andy is as a person and how he communicates. So again, your prospects are going to find that fairly compelling. But your clients, if you're looking for a way to connect with those clients that aren't always able to make it into your office, think about dipping your toe in the water with video content, you as well as the other stakeholders in your firm. Is this something that in 2020 you want to commit to and practice? And I say practice because what is it the Major League Baseball players do before every Major League game? They take batting practice. These guys are the pros, but out there before every game, they're taking swings. So with video content, I want to make sure that your takeaway is you've got to put in the repetitions, put in the swings, take practice. When you make your first video, it's not going to be an out-of-the-park home run. Allow yourself to strike out. Allow yourself to do that bunt foul for a strike three, right? Get in the repetition, get into a groove, and the more that you do it, the more proficient you'll be and the more comfortable you'll be. So don't expect to hit it out of the park on your first video, but think about what can we do in 2020 to just get some equipment and just sit down and have some comfortable conversations and just get more comfortable with this type of content. And sometimes you can get your cameras and lights, but if you don't have that expertise, you can go to sites like Man with a Cam or Thumbtack, and you can find local videographers or local studios that can come in to a half day in your office, and they'll train you. And it can be just maybe $800 for the day or $500, just depending on where you are and the portfolio of the team that you bring in. But just like, hey, come in for half a day and teach us how to use this stuff. Take a lot of good notes, make a couple sample videos, and that's a great way to learn how to do it yourself. But maybe you don't want to do it yourself. This is a great way to find some professional videographers in your area who can come in on a quarterly basis and create a couple videos in one day for you. So that's really how you can augment collaboration and ongoing interfacing you have with your clients. Using that compliant messaging system, thinking about adding live chat widgets to your website, leveraging co-browsing and co-editing technologies, using screencast to record something one time that gets viewed hundreds and hundreds of times after you create it, and also dipping your toe in the water of video content so that you're making sure that you're still top of mind and visually in front of your clients that may not make it into your office each and every day. So I'm going to wrap up with what I see on the horizon. I think I have 3 fun takeaways here. The first thing is workflow automation. So if you're using Redtail or Wealthbox for your CRM, they interact with a service called Zapier. And Zapier is where you're making your own custom workflow where something happened in Redtail and that triggers one of these zaps, which is a rule of if something happens in Redtail, what happens on the other end. And the output of a zap could be, if there's a new client in Redtail, add that email address of the new client to my email newsletter under the client segment. That's maybe not something Redtail supports natively, but you can create your own custom zap in Zapier and create that integration. So you don't have to wait for Redtail to come out with that feature after requesting it 9 months ago. You can now build that today. So think about who in your office is thinking about how to design and program some of these basic workflows. How can you start using more and more of these in your CRMs or any other solutions that are compatible with If This Then That, which is on the left-hand side, and Zapier, which is on the right. Another trend that I'm seeing from providers like Orion Advisor Tech is the increased use of business intelligence. So just think, in 2020, I talked about focusing on clients that you've got dozens of them that work with Emory University, and they're rolling out some new fringe benefits. What can you use inside your business intelligence to figure out, if we were to add some services, what are the clients that would really overlap with that new service offering? That's what the business intelligence tools are designed to identify some of those trends out of your base of clients that you already have, to say, you know, we always do the same type of planning for these types of households, or the insurance needs are always the same with these types of households. That's the type of intelligence that can put it all together for you using the data that you already have. IBM Watson has an interesting tool on the horizon. You can go and Google the IBM Watson Personality Insights, and that allows you to copy like a email thread or a list of Twitter updates from a follower, and it will give you a personality insight as to what that person is, what their personality is. And so try it on yourself. Put in some long, like a blog post or a long thread that you've written, and see what the IBM Personality Insight says about you. And think about ways that, wow, would this be creative to use this for new prospects that come in? Or maybe authors, if they write a lot of context, can we copy and paste that and figure out what their personality insights is? Very interesting to think about on the horizon, whether or not that could be built into some of your CRMs. So those really are on the horizon, but it covers the prospecting, the onboarding, and the collaboration of all different varieties and facets of how you can use technology in your business to really augment what you do. Because hardly any of these services that I've mentioned are going to displace you or disintermediate you as a financial advisor. So if you found any of this information useful or beneficial, there's always more free information through my email newsletter at fppad.com/subscribe, or if you didn't get the PDF version of the 2-page handout, all the resources and tools and technologies that I talked about are in that PDF. You can email me at bill@fppad.com, and I'd be happy to provide that PDF to you. Hopefully I did run about 5 minutes over time. I thought I would have time for Q&A, but we are into a break right now. I'm gonna hang out here, and you can come up and approach me with your specific questions. But hopefully you're not feeling exhausted. I know it's day 3, and I just gave you the fire hose of all this augmented technology, but you've been very just great with great questions, and I hope this has been beneficial for you. Thank you so much for your attention today.